In this second piece of the STP process, we focus on the targeting piece. And I think it's imperative to emphasize that, and I'm going to repeat it again. Whilst the STP process may suggest that you segment, target, and position, it is not always the case. It is not always a linear case. You can choose a target market based on what you have to offer, and then go into the aggregate market and do the segmentation piece. Similarly, you can decide from the word go to say, what is it that I am going to stand for in terms of positioning? And then go into the aggregate market, segment, and then choose your target market within the segmentation. So once you have researched, understood the market, and understood your strength relative to the competitor, understood the marketing potential, then now you can target market selection. Because now you know who are my ideal customers and who are my non-ideal customers. Because a target market is the identification of groups of people that have common characteristics that a marketeer or a company's marketing efforts are geared towards, or rather a specific group of consumers at which a company aims its products and services. The underlying word being aims its products and services. Because you have to separate the current consumers into distinct market segments, which is the segmentation, and then select the market segments that the company wants to target. So you group customers in homogeneous ones, and then you select the targets that you wanted to aim your products at. Identify if these potential target market are worthy of becoming the target markets. So for each target segment, establish and communicate the key distinctive benefits of the company's marketing efforts. Because targeting means going after that segment. So remember, now you have segmented, going after that segment, which will give you the greatest returns for the amount of effort you are putting and for which you can deliver against. In the previous session, I illustrated an example of the banking segmentation where we had affluency on the left and the value to the bank on the horizontal axis. You may choose to target all of them, or you may choose to say, I am going to prioritize on the affluent section. And what we know about the affluent section is you want to retain them, you want to cross-sell them, you want to upsell them, you want for them to have loyalty to your brand and loyalty to your offerings and to give you word of mouth. So that's what you would do when we talk about targeting. You've got segments, and then you can now target. And the important thing about targeting is it also helps in terms of refining and targeting your marketing efforts, because the first stage is segmentation. And if you've got 5 segments, you may as well say, I've got 5 segments that I know, but I'm only going to target 3 segments. No, I'm only going to target 1 segment. That's also correct. So the process of STP is really about refining and further refining and targeting, and really targeting the segments which, if you put your efforts behind, you want to get the greatest returns. So in terms of the criteria for selecting the target market, and here I'm using an example of a case where you are going into a potential market. So you will look at the segment size, look at the segment growth in terms of their usage, in terms of the spend, in terms of potential for future revenue, and then you'll also look at the market structure and say, now that I know the segment, now that I know the growth potential, what is the market structure? Level of competition, is it intense? Is it easy barriers of entry? the power of the suppliers that are in there, the substitute products that you are faced with, and the power of buyers, which sounds more like the Potter's Five, the Potter's Five forces. And you may as well say, after I have looked at all of those things, what are my company's objectives and resources that I have, which will make me play better in those targeted segments? So that will be the criteria in terms of the targeting of the targeting of the markets. And there are various targeting strategies, and these differ from what we term concentrated or niche targeting strategies, differentiated targeting strategies, individual targeting, or undifferentiated targeting. And if we look at all of them, we can see that from the left, the undifferentiated targeting strategies is what would typically comprise of mass targeting. You are focusing on common needs rather than what is different. Examples of brands that actually do undifferentiated mass marketing would be the likes of Coke. Coke targets everyone, but with the knowledge that not everyone will be drinking carbonated soft drinks. But when they are targeted at everyone. Macro, as a retailer, they in terms of their ranging, in terms of what they put in the store, is to say everyone that has got a need for anything between fresh produce, dry groceries, white furniture, come into our store. The benefits of doing a mass market targeting is that you have economies of scale because you are targeting everyone. The assumption is that you're going to reach everyone, and then that will give you economies of scale. The second one is the targeted, differentiated targeting, where you target several different segments and then you design separate offers for each and every one of them. Again, we use an example like Coca-Cola, where Coke, as the carbonated soft drinks, you've got Coke Original and then you've got the Coke variants, to say we are still targeting a big segments, but within that big segments, we're going to have a Coke Zero, Coke Healthy, Coke Vanilla, and so forth and so forth. Your CDC, your toothpaste, Colgate have got the CDC, which is the original, and they also have the different variants of Coke. VW, as a motor vehicle manufacturer, within their portfolio of offering, they are targeting startups with your Polo Vivo or Polo up until your family ones, which is the Caravella. Telecoms packages, again, the telecoms packages, you're targeting several different target segments within the people that are into cell phone packages. Bank account packages, also in the retail space, you've got everything from your junior to startups to students up until to over 65, whose banking needs and financial transaction needs will be different from a 24-year-old. And then the benefits of going with the differentiated targeting is that you offer the brand and the corporate benefits, which also give you the economies of scale. What do I mean about that is that your brand is then stretched across a huge number of the target market, but it also has got specific messages that are targeted to certain segments. And because your brand is targeted to such a high scale, you actually have economies of scale. This is different from those niche brands that you find that they are targeted, at a very, 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 very niche part of the segment. And then if we move to the further right, we get into what we call concentrated targeting, and whose sister cousin is the micro targeting. In the concentrated targeting, really it's about targeting a small share of a large market. A small share of a large market. And if you look at the examples that I've used here, the large market in this case is a food market. But you can say, while I'm going to play in the food market, I am only going to concentrate in the organic food market or whole food market. Organic food, organic. It's a very, 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 very tightly defined target markets. And the benefits is that there is a clarity of offering. You become known for offering organic food market. It's highly differentiated. It enables small firms that doesn't necessarily have economies of scale to go in and compete. So, for example, in the pet food market, you are competing with Pedigree, you are competing with a whole lot of others. But if you come into the pet food market and say, this is just organic pet food, a small player whose expertise, whose resource expertise are around organic pet food. One, they've got a chance to compete. Their offering is clear, and in most instances, once you've got a clear offering, you can afford to charge a premium, and it becomes highly differentiated. It's for those people that just want a organic food or organic pet food. Moving further to the right again is again local marketing. We can do micro marketing and use examples like local marketing, in which you do cities, neighborhood specific stores, and I will show you an example thereof. And again, we can even be further with micro targeting and use tactics like individual one-on-one marketing, or rather mass customization. What I'm talking about is, if you look at the local marketing, you've got a big brand of vodka, which is Absolute Vodka, but they took that vodka and localized it. Absolute London, Absolute Manhattan, Absolute Brooklyn, Absolute Miami, Absolute Pride for specific target markets. Then you take a prevalent brand or a mass market brand, and then you can do localized and customize it. And what this does is to give the resident of that area some sort of an ownership thereof. Local targeting using neighborhoods. The now defunct We Run Jozi by Nike, again, is to associate Nike and this particular marathon with Jozi. What you get is people of Jozi take ownership of the property, and it gains traction from that. It doesn't mean if you're from Cape Town, or if you're from Pretoria, Krugersdorp, or Brakpan, you cannot run. But for the people of Jozi, it just gives them that sense of ownership, and then it stands out. Nike by You is really an example of individual targeting, where they take a mass appealing thing like Nike shoe, and then as an individual you can go and design your own colors. Another one is mass customization. Mass customization, it's an example where a mass produced product, like a Mini, where we produce thousands and thousands and thousands of them, that looks the same, and then we can customize them to say, an example would be the flag on top of the roof, the flag on top of the side mirrors, or a color coded Mini. So that will be an example of mass customization. But once again, to build on the STP process in closing, is that the process of STP, or the process of segmentation, targeting, and later on positioning, it's about how can you compete better by refining your marketing activities, by refining your marketing strategy, by refining the targeted sample that you are going to play in, because you cannot be everything to everyone. And some of these examples, they just makes you stand out, for you to give ownership of a property to the target market, because it's all about differentiation. So in the next section, we're going to be discussing the positioning piece, which is the last piece of the STP.